Today I thought that I would give my opinions on giving pets to children, or birds more specifically. Is it responsible? How do you go around it if you want to do so? And what are the pros and cons in general of doing so? I am a teenager, I would say myself. I am 20, but I recently turned 20, so we can say I'm a teenager. And I got my first own pet when I was 18 years old. And I want to talk about how we got around it and how it's been and what you should look out for if you're going to give your child a pet, or if you are a young child who wants a pet right now. I'm going to talk about what have been my experiences and what are my thoughts on this subject. So it's not uncommon at all for parents to give kids their own pet, but while dogs and cats are seen more as pets for the whole family, smaller animals like hamsters are often left to the mercy of a child who can barely tell the difference between a big dog and a horse. On the other hand, I see many people discouraging pet-loving kids and teenagers from getting pets, and as a young adult who has been enslaved to my pet bird for around 2 years from when I was 18 and has been loving animals since I was little, I wanted to give my perspective on it, because it's easy to just say you should never do it, but there are some gray zones and things you can do to actually make it work. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is your age, or the age of the child that you want to give a pet. Are you dealing with a teenager who might be old enough to take responsibility and maybe even buy some of the stuff themselves for this pet? Or are you dealing with a younger child who can't provide any of these things and need to be supervised around the pet themselves? If we are talking about the last case and you are not ready yourself to take care of this animal, I do not think you should get pets for younger children. But more on this later. I know many of you guys are bird people, many of my viewers are bird people. So I'm going to take birds as the example because there are a lot of different pets to talk about. But I want to get some of the elephants out of the room and just mention two very popular children's pet and why not they may not be suitable. Okay, so biggest elephant is hamsters. I just want to give hamsters some justice because I don't think that they're a very good children's pet for a lot of reasons, but care-wise, hamsters need a big cage, they need loads of floor space with no levels, not these small plastic tanks with no space at all basically. They need a big wheel, they need sand bath, they need enrichment, they need 15 to 20 centimeters of bedding, so you often need like a big tank. And they're nocturnal, so they won't even be awake half of the time when your child wants to play with them. They aren't social, so there's a lot that goes into hamster care, and you can watch Victoria Rachel. I think she's great. She's basically the hamster god of YouTube. If you know her, you know her. Go watch her if you want to learn more about hamsters, but I just want to mention it because I know that there are so many children that did get hamsters because they only live for 2 years is often the thing I hear. But just because they live for 2 years doesn't mean that they don't need to be provided with the proper care. So keep that in mind. If you want to give your child a hamster, please go watch her and please do your research before you get one. Second, smaller elephant. I feel like the message is way more out there is bunnies and how you should not keep them in cages for their whole life. Bunnies need a lot of exercise, they're very smart, they need enrichment and all this. Again, I would say that if you are gonna get a bunny for your kid, free roam them, do like you would with a dog or a cat. Get the bunny, get a litter box, they are actually extremely clean pets and you can just have them roam around the house. All you need to look out for is cords and basically bunny proofing the whole thing, but it's sort of the same thing you would do with a puppy. So keep that in mind if you want a bunny. You can also go watch a ton of sources on that, but keep in mind bunnies equals free roaming and not cage in kids' room. Okay, that was just some quick things about those animals, and I know that there are so many pets that are mistreated and not cared for properly. I could go on, but these are just some of the more common children pets that I see. I don't even want to get into goldfish and bearded dragons and all this stuff, but you know, do your research no matter the species. We're gonna get into the birds and children now, but this sort of applies to all pets really. I just use birds as the example, and birds are a bit of a special case because they live for so long compared to other pets. But other than that, I think you can really apply this to every other pet in general. So I hope that you will stay along even though you might not be that bird interested. And for my bird friends, let's begin. So a bird is a big deal. Surprise! They need a big cage, they need enrichment, they need fresh food every single day, they need daily attention, and a kid is not able to provide the majority of the things a bird need on their own. Unless you have a self-sufficient 8-year-old, but then that's just peak parenting, honestly, and then they deserve it. It's important to remember that kids rarely are interested in a new pet for a long time, and that's just how kids are, so we can't really blame them for that. But you know, your kid is begging for this new bird and you give them the bird, they are interested for about a week and then they lose interest. And then it is your responsibility, as I mentioned in the beginning, to then take responsibility of this bird. And you brought this bird into your life, that is just how it is. And this is why so many end up in shelters or get rehomed or whatever, is because parents buy them for their kids lose interest, parents don't want to take care of it, they rehome it. So get ready for a lot of research, because if you want to give your younger child this bird, you are going to need to know a lot. You can't just say that the child should know it all, because they can't if they are that young. They can't do all the research on their own. You as the parent need to step in and figure out what species is proper for our living, not the child's, our living, and what are the proper diet, what cage size do they need, etc. And then you can buy all these things and the kid can sort of be on the sideline while it is basically your bird, and then you can just, you know, have it in the kid's room, say it's the children's bird, but you know, you're the one feeding, you're the one making sure that it's okay. Vet bills are important, you need to consider those as well. You need to have money for vet bills, money for food every single day. You need to entertain the bird every single day if your kid does not want to. Keep this in mind. It is the most important thing I could say in this video, is that if you're dealing with a younger child, make sure you do the research, make sure that you are prepared to take care of this animal. So bottom line, if you are considering getting a pet for a younger child, think about it as you getting a pet for yourself and your younger child watching, learning from the sideline. Now, how about older kids, teenagers? I would say it depends on the individual. Let's say that they have a job besides school, which means that they are able to, you know, buy all the stuff for the bird, they are able to buy the bird themselves, and they are able to provide for them. What could then be the problem, really? And now we can get into personal experience, because I got Charlie when I was 18 and I went to school and I had a job. So this is basically my scenario. So talking from experience, teens are obviously more developed and more able to take care of this animal that they're bringing in. However, it is still very likely that the teenager realizes that they can't go to that party till 3 a.m. They can't sleep at a friend's house. They can't sleep at their boyfriend or girlfriend's house. And suddenly the bird isn't that interesting anymore, because it is more so just an obstacle to do these different things that they really want to do. So either we are back at this, you as a parent need to be ready to go in and take responsibility and incorporate this bird in the whole family's lives, or you may actually be dealing with a teenager who actually means it. So how do you exactly know as a parent when your kid means it, rather than it just being empty promises from your child and the bird will end up in a shelter 1 month after because no one in the family wants it? So before I moved here to live by myself, I lived in my mom's basement as the super cool gamer that I am. I just want to make it clear that Charlie was never given to me, neither was her cage, her purchase, her toys, anything like that. I myself provided for all the things that I needed before getting Charlie. And I'm saying this because honestly, if you want to give your teenager a bird, I think that you should make them pay for everything themselves. If they see the price tag of a cage alone, that can be enough to throw them off this idea of getting a bird. Or maybe you're dealing with a child who's willing to save up and use all their savings on getting all this equipment, a proper cage, and all this stuff. And now this is a sign that your child may actually mean it. I personally think that the best way to go around it is actually to make them do as much as they can themselves. You know, do research, do find the breeder, contact the breeder, buy toys, buy the cage, all this stuff, to the point where the only thing missing is the bird. This not only shows you, the parent, that your child actually means it, but it's also a good way to give them an idea of the expenses that are going to follow them for a pretty long time and where they can buy all these supplies. Now, I don't think that there's a pet I haven't asked for yet, so convincing my mom that I was serious about getting a parrot was a big challenge. And I want to say thank you to my mom and dad for containing my need for 10 different animals since kindergarten, because now that I'm older, I bother my boyfriend with it instead, I gotta be honest. But in all seriousness, what I did, and what I think could be a great idea for anyone wanting a bird, is just to go out and find a way to be around them, really. I personally found a neglected blue-headed pinus on the Danish version of Craigslist, and this was not Charlie, mind you, this was another blue-headed pinus that I found, you know, all boxes checked on neglect. She was in small cage, all-seed diet, not tamed, didn't get trained, another bird was attacking her, owners were smoking in the house, she didn't have a very good life at the time. So I asked my mom if I was allowed to buy this bird, for my own money of course, buy this bird, get her home, tame her, get her on the proper diet, you know, sort of a project bird, and then give her her forever home, you know, sell her again. And my mom actually agreed to this, because remember, I wasn't allowed to have my own bird, so this was sort of the ultimate challenge to show my mom that, hey, I know what I'm doing, I know what parrots are like, and I know their body language, all this stuff. I knew what I had to do, so I got this bird, and it went surprisingly well. She was very, very frightened of humans, like we are talking panic flight. As soon as I entered the room, she was in such poor conditions when I got her, but it only took me 2 weeks to get her to step up on my fingers and be comfortable with me, petting her on the beak. And I can tell you now that she is at a lovely family who has had her for a year and a half, 2 years, I think. And this is a picture of a year apart. Thank you, Mom, for letting me do that. And it obviously, as you can tell, convinced my mom to let me have a bird, since she thought that they were actually pretty cute and she really liked it. And I sometimes caught her down in my room talking to the parrot while I wasn't home. So, you know, so this is a good way to sort of confirm with you as the parent that, okay, my child actually wants this bird. And for you as the teenager to get a chance to maybe try out some different breeds as well. I'm not saying that you should go out and adopt 10 different neglected birds and bring into your household. But, you know, find some ways you can volunteer at a shelter, or you can do what I did, find some birds that may not be in such good conditions, and then use your research to maybe try out some different things, and of course do whatever is best for the bird. Don't rush into this with, you know, your needs in mind of getting a bird. You know what I mean, you get the point. I can really recommend getting some hands-on experience before you get your all-time favorite bird, because things like screaming is extremely different from species to species, and hearing a bird scream on, you know, a video on YouTube or anything like that is very different to having a bird scream in real life all the time, doing chirps and all this stuff, because it's with you 24/7, not just a video that you can pause. Now, talking about species, what are some good starter birds? And my answer is none. There are none such thing as a starter bird, in my opinion. Now, parrots, as many may know, tend to live for a long time, and we're talking 7 to 60 years. Let's say you really want a macaw. If you live under the philosophy that you need to go through what people like to refer to as starter birds before you can get this macaw, let's say a budgie or a cockatiel, first of all, a cockatiel isn't gonna be a macaw but smaller. They are very different in needs and noise level and cage requirements, space requirement, not to mention that unless you're getting an older cockatiel or an older macaw, you have to live with this cockatiel for 15 years and provide for it before getting the macaw that lives for around 50 years. Yes, some bird species are easier to take care of than others in terms of needs, But if you really want the macaw and have done years of research, you know, been around them, then don't let the fact that it isn't marked as a beginner bird stop you from getting one, because with that lifespan, it is very difficult for people to give a macaw a forever home where it goes from 0 to 50 years. It's almost impossible, and especially if people think that you need to go through 3 different bird species to have enough experience to take care of one. Why did you? This is also why it is important to let your teenager do some research on the species, because they are going to be spending a big chunk of their life with them. And yes, here future plans such as college is going to make a whole lot of difference if that is what they're going to do. Now, it was always my plan to go to college with Charlie, but I couldn't get a macaw. I don't have space for a macaw here, and I wouldn't have enough space for a proper cage either. So, you know, researching the different species, their noise levels, I live with neighbors, so all these factors come into play when you're talking about future plans and teenagers. If your teenager today walks up and say that they want a pet, make them do the research, make them tell you about all the research, and, you know, drag it out for a bit, make sure that they stay interested, and it's not just a 1 month thing. Birds live for many years, so, you know, keeping that interest going for half a year should be no problem at all for them. So having these things in combination with dragging it out a bit can be a very good thing to do. And now after they have done research, make them pay for all the things, make them pay for the cage, let them find out where they buy all these things that they are going to buy for years to come. And lastly, go see someone with the bird species that you want in mind. Maybe it's a whole different story when you see them in real life. Maybe they aren't as cute when they aren't doing anything on the internet. You get the point. But, you know, go out and get some real life experience with the bird species that you want. So back to the real question, should you let your kids have a bird? Well, yes and no. You know your kid best, I hope. So therefore you also know if they are actually ready to take responsibility for this pet. But if you are dealing with a younger child, I think that you as a parent should always be ready to jump in and take responsibility and take care of this pet. I hope this helped and that I made it a bit clearer for adults or kids watching this, wanting a bird or wanting to give their children a bird. Remember, animals should never be given as gifts, and way too many parents give their kids pets and never do research on them themselves. Please be that awesome parent that does the research. Obviously you're watching this one, so if it counts for anything, I'm very proud of you. If you need tips on good things to do when you do bring home a bird, I made a video going over some tips that is great for creating some good habits with your bird. So go check that out if you want to. Lastly, if you are a kid or a teenager watching this, please don't beg your parents for a pet. It is their home and you are bringing a pet into the whole family by getting one. So please, they're just trying to prepare you, and there will be plenty of time to get a pet when you move out and get a stable economy and have plenty of time. So, you know, stay strong and be patient. The time will come. That's it for me. I hope to do more content with pets in general instead of just birds. Obviously, I do like birds, don't get me wrong, but I also really enjoy educating people on all sorts of different animals. And even though there are a lot of other YouTubers out there that do it, if I can just, you know, help that one hamster or that one bunny get better conditions, then I am extremely happy. Also, I would like if you guys would keep an eye out for some posts that I may make here on YouTube, as I really do want to make some Q&As or some cage reviews or anything like that. We do have a couple of followers now, and I would really love to see how you guys keep your pets, if you have any, or if you're just along for the ride. Maybe you have some questions for me or about Charlie or my personal life, you know, what I'm doing besides just studying and taking care of Charlie. So keep an eye out for that. That would be extremely awesome. But other than that, thank you so much, you guys, for watching and commenting. I want you to know that I read every single one of the comments, and I love it and I enjoy it that you guys are interacting with me and that I hopefully can interact with you back. That sounds very lonely, but you know what I mean. Bye!